So this is what the helmet looks like after sanding it with the 80 grit. You can see these areas I cannot get to with the hand sander machine. So those have to be done by hand. So this is basically what the texture looks like. It's very gritty, very sandy, if you will. You can see it's very rough. You should be able to see it here. So the next step is to do the 120. And this is the back, just as a reference point. You could probably see here in an angle how grainy it is. And that's because of the 80 grit. So next, we're going to do the 120. So here we are after the 120. And you can see I did the, I guess, I'm going to call this sort of like the widow's peak area or the forehead. I did that by hand because it's very difficult to get to it with the machine. And this is what it looks like after the 120. You can see there it's a lot smoother, but you can still see a lot of the scratch marks. So the next step is going to be the 220 and the 320. I'm not going to show you after the 220, but I'll show you after the 320. And that's more to get rid of all these scratch marks. Afterwards, once I prime it, I might need to use some filler because you can see some spots have like, I guess what you might call divots or pitting, and that's probably from the 3D printing or from the sander just pulling away some of the material. This is the back. You can see it looks a lot smoother, and you can see here, let me see if I could get this in an angle. And see, you don't see that graininess anymore. So I finished doing the 220 and then the 320. The 320, I did it by hand because it makes it easier to get into this little crevice areas here. So as you can see, it looks nice and smooth. That discoloration is from the sanding. What I'll do after this is give it a quick wash with some soap. Once it dries, I'll go ahead and do the first coat of sandable fillable primer. I may need to add some glazing putty if there are any imperfections. So the steps that I'm going to take, and I'll go over this as I'm doing it. I'm going to put a light coat first, let that dry a bit, then put a slightly heavier coat. Then I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to see if it has any imperfections like little holes and so forth. I'll fill them in with some glazing putty, and I'll go over that, and then do some sanding on the glazing putty, and then give it another coat of primer. Let that dry, sand it, and I'm using, generally I'll use 800 grit. I usually do not go higher than that. And then I'll do my painting. One very important note, before you even start to primer your helmet, do not forget to first put in your magnets to make sure that your magnets fit in all your holes. Some of these did not. They were a little tight, so I used this deburring tool. Let me see if I could get it in here. See, that might be a little better. And I used it with a rotary, kind of like a Dremel, and I just used it to clean out around the edges of the holes to make sure that all my magnets fit properly. This is after the first light coat. You could probably see some color difference on it. I went ahead and taped over the magnets. The next coat will be a lot heavier. I just don't want it to run off if I put too much at once and it has nothing to really grab onto. All right, so this is both parts primed. Now, I guess I didn't shake the can enough, and you can see all those little specks. That's from the bottom of the can. So I'm gonna have to give that a light sanding how I was planning to, and then see what's going on. Obviously, I had to go a little more aggressive in my sanding than I would have liked to, due to me not shaking the can properly. As you can see on this side, it's not so bad. It's sanded nicely. Still have a little bit there. I'm not sure that'll come up on the camera, but for the most part, it's nice and smooth. This is the area where a lot of the spitting really happened. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna do a little glazing because I'm not sure if it comes up on the camera, but there's actually like little micro holes on there. So I want to make sure that I cover those up before I do the next coat of primer. And here, these were already there. So some minor imperfections that I need to cover up. So yeah, once I do the glazing on that, I'm gonna do the priming once more. I'll do one coat, I might do two just to be sure, and then do the 800 grit sanding again. I'm not gonna really bore you with that part, but I'll probably show you after I glaze it, just so you can see what it looks like. And then once I'm done priming and sanding once more, I'll come back and show you that part. After that, I'm gonna go ahead and put the first coat of paint. So this is what's left over after doing the putty. I basically put putty almost all over because I kept seeing the little divots or the little pitting, which you might be able to pick up on those little dots. They're basically everywhere. So the spitting or whatever happened with the can was a lot more prominent than I originally had thought. Here you can see it a lot more here and down here and down here. So basically that's covering all the little holes. I used 600 grit wet dry sandpaper, and this one I did it wet in order to sand all of it. Here you can see those little marks that I had mentioned that were left over from before. So yeah, now this is ready for final priming, and I'll show you after I put the first coat of paint, which is gonna be gold. And I'll go over the steps as I'm doing them. So as you can see, I finished painting the helmet gold, and it does have a light sheen on it. I'm just gonna give it a rotation so you can see around. It is slightly reflective. This is only with 2 coats. So it lost focus right there. There we go. It's 2 coats, and it's not 100% perfect, but it does not need to be, because this is just the undercoat to help us get the color that we want. You may be able to see that some parts are not as smooth because I only did 2 coats. Had I done the 3rd coat, that would have covered a lot of it. So I used Rust-Oleum metallic finish, and you can tell from the cap that it's the gold one. This specific one is supposed to end up shiny like this, but the way that I did it, I don't need it to be shiny, and I don't want it to be shiny because I'm gonna paint over it again. This actually sprays out very quickly. So when you're actually painting with it, you want to make sure that you're letting your finger off as you're leaving the area, then press it again and go over. You don't want to start painting on the area because it comes out very quickly. And you never want to stop. You always want to use a moving motion as you're painting, because if you stop, it will most likely drip. You're gonna have to stop, let it dry, and sand it and start all over with your gold. And you want to avoid that. So do light coats in motion, let it dry for 15 minutes, and the instructions are on the can itself, very tiny, but they're on there. Let it dry for about 10 to 15 minutes, do the next coat, and if you actually want to end up with this color, then obviously you got to do more than 2 than what I did. So yeah, I just wanted to give you that note regarding this specific color and brand, because I found it does come out very quickly and it does cover very quickly. As you can see, the red is done. So let me just give it a circling like I did before. Now on this angle, I think it's the perfect way to explain why I did the gold and wasn't too worried about it. You might be able to see some slight gold underneath, but as you change angles, it starts to disappear. You see it? Now if you look at the top, you start to see some gold, and then as I rotate, it starts to disappear. Obviously it's so shiny that you can see the light from the camera and from my ceiling, but that is pretty much what we're going for. So let me go over the paint that I'm actually using. I'm using Duplicolor Metal Cast Red Anodized. Now, just as a note, the tip on this can be rotated. Right now I have it that it sprays like this because I'm spray painting side to side. If you're gonna be spray painting up and down, rotate the tip, otherwise you'll get a line. So if you wanna go up and down, you put it sideways, it'll spray wide. If you wanna go side to side like I did, put it vertically, and you have to make sure that you keep using the same motions like I mentioned. Start spraying on the outside, bring it in, let go. Start spraying, bring it in, let go. Now, one important thing about this actual paint, it goes on very light. So with each coat, it gets darker. This is 3 coats, and this is what I wanted because it's what I've done before. And I'll bring over my version 1 helmet to show you. If you want it a little darker, you can do 4 coats and so forth. Just do it light coats at a time, wait 10 minutes between coats. And it actually tells you on the can all the instructions you need to know. Other than the gold metallic, you could do like a silver metallic or a chrome and you'll get a slightly different effect. I happen to like the gold color because it gives it like a red-orange, especially since I'm gonna do a matte clear finish. This is actually very shiny, and if you like it like this, I would say do a glossy finish, a glossy clear coat to protect your paint. And I'll do 3 coats of that as well. And you can do 3 or 4 if you like of the clear coat. It's really up to you. So let me go ahead and bring the previous helmet to show you. So this here is my V1 helmet. You can see, or I hope you can still see a little bit of the gold underneath it. But as you rotate it, it looks much darker. And this paint actually does get a little darker as time passes. As you can see on this one, this is 3 coats at will, painted the exact same way. Now this does have the matte finish, but this is what I'm going for. I like this slightly reflective finish, but not as obviously as shiny as this. You can see the difference using the matte versus gloss. So this is what I'm going for on the V2. So yeah. So next, I'm gonna do my clear coat. And before I forget, allow the helmet to dry at least 8 hours before you put on the clear coat. Once you put on the clear coat, and I'll go over that again, you should probably let it dry for 24 to 48 hours. I believe that's what it says on the can, to make sure that the clear coat gets as hard as possible. But if you're in a rush, at least give it 8 hours, just to be sure. So we're now done with the matte clear coat. As you can see, it's not as reflective as it was before. So let me just give you the 360 view. You can see it's nice and matte, and you can tell here that the light is not as reflective as it was before. We still have that gold color coming through a little bit. And this is version 1. You can see there, it's very similar in the way that it's reflecting. Obviously, this one is a little wider, so this reflection is going to be slightly different. But overall, you can see it's very close. What's left is to paint these little detail marks all around here, and to paint the inner lip here and on the inside on both of them. There is some paint there, but I actually want that black because I'm going to be illuminating the eyes and I don't want any light reflecting from there. So that's why I will be painting that black. This is what I used, Rust-Oleum Double Ultra Cover Matte Clear. So I finished painting the detailed black lines. I'm getting ready to take off the tape, and I figured I'd share that with you. I have my little tweezers to help me pick on some of these. And this has 2 coats, and I let it dry for about 15 minutes now. And I might have to do a little cleanup. This is acrylic paint, And it should come off fairly easily with a little water. If not, I might use a little alcohol, just a little bit on the little spots that might need to be cleaned up on the edge. After that, I'll put a light clear coat over those black lines. Now, I put the black detail lines after I put the matte clear coat on the helmet, because I have found in the past that at least this specific paint adheres a little better to the clear coat than it does to the actual glossy paint. So that's why I prefer to do it this way. And in reality, since they're inserted, you don't even have to put a clear coat over them. I may or may not do it. I think in the last helmet I did do it, but I'm not 100% sure if I'll do it on this one. I probably will. You can see right here it's still a little wet on that spot. And like I said, I'll clean that up. That's why I'm taking it off now before it dries fully, because it'll make it a little easier to do some cleanup work. And that's the spot I'm talking about right there. I still have to do the inner part of the eyes on the helmet, not on the actual eye. This little edge right here on the outside. If you are using a tweezer, be careful not to scratch the paint. So I should probably just do this on here now. And there we go. That's pretty much done. So yeah, that's pretty much almost all the painting parts. I just have to do this inner portion like I mentioned. I'm not gonna bore you with that part. The next step is putting on the foam on the inside. I'll have to do a little light sanding on the inside because some paint got on there, and I'll go over what those boxes are. But I'm pretty sure you can read there. That's the battery. That's the ESP module that controls the LEDs. So yeah, I just have to do the padding and cover the wiring, and that's pretty much it. We'll see what it looks like at the end of the video, the final product. But since it does have it built in, I can actually just turn on the switch here, and you can see the eyes turn on right there. So it's fully self-contained. That's why it's actually a little wider than the V1, because I made it slightly wider so I could fit these modules in here on the sides. As mentioned previously, all that is left is doing the padding inside. I did some light sanding and then cleaned it up with a light damp cloth. What I'll be using is these templates that I created when I did the version 1. I cut this one up a little bit with some flaps for the changes that I made on this one. So basically what I will do is, I'll take these templates, I'll put them on my foam, trace them out, cut them, and glue them. And pretty much that's all it's going to be. I'm going to be using contact cement, and if you haven't used this, basically you put some on one side, some on the other, let them dry. I believe it's 15-20 minutes. It does say it in the instructions. And then you put them together, and the moment they touch, it just sticks. Basically meaning on contact. So just in case, you may want to put like a piece of paper underneath as you're putting it down. Once you have it lined up, you pull the paper out, and then you start sticking it on. So basically, that's what I'll be doing here. I'm not gonna bore you to watching the whole process of cutting and everything. I'll just show you the end once it's done. And for these wires, I'm gonna try to leave some gaps so they're in between in case I need to remove this. I don't have to cut the foam. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So let me show you right at the end once it's done. And then basically this is it. The electronics, I'm gonna make a whole different video for that in case anybody's interested. These are the eyes here. And again, I'll go over that in a whole separate video. I'm hoping to have this one done in November, mid-November. So you'll be seeing this around mid-November. And the eyes or electronics setup, I'm hoping to have it by mid-December the latest. At least that's my hope. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do this and I'll show you the final product. Okay, so this is pretty much the helmet with the padding. As you can see, the part where I had no glue is because I wanted a little flap so I could route some of the wires through the back. On here, after I glued on the padding, I cut it with an X-Acto knife to do a little bit of wire management. I did the same up front here. On here and on the sides, I'm gonna put additional padding, but I'll be only partially gluing it. So let's say I'll glue it here and I'll use this sort of double-sided sticky tape to hold on the other side because I want to be able to get to these wires and take them out. On here, I'll be using the thinner material, which is pretty much this very thin material. So obviously I'm going to use a bigger piece. It's going to go over this to hide the wires, and similar here on the sides. I'm going to do something similar to keep the wires in there, but I want to be able to get to the wires in case I need to. So yeah, this is pretty much it. I might put a little piece of the thin material on here, just in case my nose rubs on there. I don't want it to be rubbing against the plastic. So just basically stick like that, and we're done. This is it. I basically just have to glue the white part on there. As you can see, I still have some tape, but this is it. I'm gonna be doing the video for the electronics later on, as you can see. If you want to watch that video, don't forget to subscribe and like this video in order to get notifications once that video comes out in about a month. As you can see, we're glowing. And actually, one more note, I don't have it on right now, but I am going to put a little button right here in order to be able to cycle through the effects with my chin. Basically, I'll just push on the button with my chin and it'll change the colors. And I'll probably show you that when I'm doing the electronics video because I'll have that part done by then. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll have that done for this video.